Welcome to the You Decide podcast. I'm Dr. Tiffany. We are going to bring you stories of ordinary people who have chosen to live an extraordinary life, outside of their comfort zones and into confidence, possibility, and certainty. You are just one decision away from living your most aligned life, because let's get real, that's what we all want.
Hey guys, today we have Crystal Crazy. I'm going to call you Crystal Crazy. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk everything essential oils and aromatherapy. And, like I've known you for a really long time, but I forgot that you did all this. So it was a few weeks ago when you had messaged on someone's post, I'm like, oh my gosh, the world has no idea how to discern essential oils at all. And I can say that just because I'm in it trying to give advice, and I tell people I have actually no idea. I carry these because I like them. They smell good. So we're going to dig into, what they are, what's the difference between the products you use and the products that are multi-level. So I think of Young Living and doTERRA as the biggest multi-level. Dosages, dilutions for kids, for adults, and then a little bit specific stuff on anxiety and fear and some of the those are the common people you work with, same as me. So, and who knows where else we get to go, but you get the platform now. Exactly. We're just going to ebb and flow. You get the platform. You start wherever you need to start in teaching. And then at the end, you'll share all the opportunities that people have to work with you. So the courses you've created and all the things that you do. So you're beautiful.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I love just having conversation with you and seeing you in my life, whether it's just on social media or here and there, whenever it happens. So I'm grateful for everything that you do for all of the people. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Yay!
Yeah. So aromatherapy is like such an interesting place because people get interested, especially when they're starting to want to do things more naturally. Sometimes it's just with cleaning and sometimes it's with health. And so there's so much information out there, and I'm always very grateful for the platforms that do keep things relatively safe, because people can feel safe and they're not going to go and do something that is more risky. However, everybody doesn't always look for that information or come across it on time, meaning an accident will happen, they'll burn their skin, a kid will get into something, so there's that. Or two, they don't actually even get what they need from it. And so people aren't reaching like effective doses, and then they think that it doesn't work as well. So, it's an interesting area, and that's kind of like one of my missions is to help people learn how to use oils and how to get that effective dose while also not overdoing it, as well as not wasting them. Because, one of the first things I talk about when I talk about oils is the dilution process. And so much plant material is used to make this teeny tiny bottle, And so it's funny because people will be like, are you diffusing oils all the time? Like being a aromatherapist? And it's like, I actually don't do that,
Like you don't want to waste it.
I don't want to waste it. There's some that are easier, and there's certain like ebbs and flows where I'm like, I'm diffusing things more often, whether it's, back to school, fall time, season change, and I'm just kind of like cleaning the air, or needing a mood shift or things like that, where I will use them more often. But it's definitely not something that I do as often as people think I do, because I'm a oily person, as a lot of people will call themselves.
Whatever.
So that's kind of like where I like to start.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we, as a normal, everybody, this is what I struggle with. I'm just gonna, the majority of people come into using oils to treat something. And I get super duper frustrated because I'm like, okay, it can be used like a medication really easily, right? As you know, how do we get, so if we know that the entry to using oils typically, like you said, is an accident or something emergent, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you educate people, or what would you say to them to like start using things now? And then I want you to go into the difference between like the products, your favorite products that you use, and then how to discern what's good and what's maybe not good.
Yeah. So, it really is like a case by case basis. So, when somebody comes and they're first starting to use oils, I kind of coach them. It's like, what are you using them for? What's going on? Where can we start? And so I feel like I do a lot of that just like one-on-one. I do have a lot of people who are like, where can I start? Is there something I can read? And of course, there's a couple things that I do. One is Robert Tisserand is like one of the most well-known educators about essential oils. So I actually haven't read like any of his books,
Right.
because I've done all my stuff through trainings.
Right.
But I wouldn't mind actually buying some and having some for other resources as well, as like when I direct people in that way. I just know that he has quality information. And then he formulated plant therapies stuff. They've worked with him. And so when they created like their Kid Safe line, they used a lot of his information. And so for me, when I'm working with people, especially when they have kids, a cheat is to go on their website and look if it's kid safe.
Got it.
So they, when I rank my favorite oils, they land on there as number 4.
Okay.
So my favorite oils, I'll just go into that
Yeah,
kind of from there, and we can backtrack if it, needs to go that way.
Yep.
My top 3 are very similar, and I did write a blog about my top ones because everybody asks me that. So the Floricopia is one of my all-time favorites. They their company is based in California. Their ethics are so phenomenal. They actually work with like true women cooperatives that like are owned by women, run by women, because a lot of people don't know that certain women cooperatives are still run by men, which is fascinating.
Right. Interesting.
But then they also, just like their harvesting, the way they work with their distillers, like it's just so pure. They're also organic and fair trade, which is really important. With pesticides and things like that, if you don't know if it's organic, it can really be inundating your system with toxins when you're trying to heal. And I do know that like Young Living and doTERRA talk about like their cleanliness of their oils, and they claim to be organic, but they are not certified organic, at least from when I last looked.
Okay.
So whatever. Then I like Pranaram, which
what is it?
Pranaram.
Okay.
Pranaro, the line over it.
Yep.
So they have a base in Minneapolis, which I just think is cool because they're pretty, it's like they're local to here.
Right.
But their oils are also all organic, and they have gotten widely enough known that they've been able to keep their prices lower as well. So you're still getting like this really quality, organic, amazing oil, but you're not paying as much for it. And oils are one of those things where it's like you pay for what you get, and they're kind of one of those little exceptions to the rule to me.
Okay.
And so I really love them. And those are the 2 that we carry in our office at Moorhead Massage. And then my third is Florihana, which is based in France. And so when you're ordering it, you kind of have to do it online. Right. Gosh, I would love to carry theirs. again, they're all organic, and their distilleries and everything are just so amazing. And so, and for me, I just feel the vibrations of the oils because that's who I am. And so I like feel them in my sphere, and I'm just like, ah. So
we gotta talk about that. Can you? Okay, so people call you crystal crazy for a reason. See, peeps?
Yeah, that's true.
She's talking about the vibration of oils, and you might be rolling your eyes, but can we go there? Because the people that have never heard this before, I think it's super important to understand the energy of products. And then the people that want to go more, like you can actually help teach them a little bit. How do you, can you just talk about vibration of oils and why it's important in choosing?
Totally. So one, I think, especially in this current time frame of society, people are so disconnected from themselves.
Yeah.
And we're needing like a lot more like embodiment. And I know you talk a lot about like you decide and your choice. And it's just, that's where it's all at, right? You can feel your own center, you can feel your own energy. And when you're like in that space, it's a lot easier when you have a supplement, a plant, a food come into your sphere to feel it like light you up. And that's kind of, I think food is probably the easiest way to like kind of describe it as more of a metaphor. But like when you grab something like a strawberry or something and you can just feel it, like it looks vibrant, it feels vibrant, you can feel it, and then you eat it and you're just like, it's like your whole body goes you know.
Oh, if everybody could just see you, maybe we need to have all this live. That's awesome.
Yes. So that's how I feel about the oils. Like there are times when you can just feel which oil you need and want. And I do think that's a little bit more of an advanced practice, because if you don't know what you're doing or you're not keyed into your intuition, for you to choose an oil that maybe would be contraindicated for something that you've got going on or whatever, that could get a little bit scary. But if you are tuned into those kinds of things, you can feel that vibration. You can feel when it comes into your sphere, you can feel it like light you up or make you feel stronger or any of those things. And that's just kind of the thing. Like when I get oils like in a package, there's even times when I can tell the difference between a same brand one, like it'll be the exact same thing, this lavender and this lavender. And it's just like, this one just feels so strong and robust and turned on, when it's in my hand or in my sphere. So yeah. And what's neat going into just like the mental, emotional sides of that is that's what that is too, like it's that energy of like harmonizing what's imbalanced within you, and it's kind of reminding me for some reason right now, the smells. There's people who will say, sometimes when you smell something and you don't like it, it means you need it. And though I think there could be truth to that, when it comes to using oils for like mental, emotional, anxiety, depression, any of that kind of stuff, that's not true.
No.
So you have to like the way it smells. It has to resonate for you. It has to feel good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that is super interesting. I had it as a question because I had a workshop in the office years and years ago, and that was one of their biggest points was what makes you sick, like nauseous, or what makes you agitated, what is what you need. I'm like, oh my gosh. Innately that doesn't feel good at all for me. I mean, it never did. I don't think that that's something that, yes, I can understand if it was maybe part of the process to get from here to here, but in that moment of being more connected from a disconnected state, it is important that we're doing things that feel good and that bring light into our body.
Right. And I think that to me, the only areas where I've been able to see the truth is when somebody is like what, you're really so disconnected from yourself that you don't know what's good for you. Kind of like if you think about your body only craving sugar when you need to cleanse candida. or something, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it doesn't resonate. So the other thing would be if you were using the oils for a purely chemical purpose. So if you're using them for the specific chemical compounds that are in the oils to treat a skin abrasion type situation, an infection, a muscle situation, then you don't necessarily have to like the way it smells, but you are going to want to like the way it feels going on your body, you know, like yeah. And it kind of reminds me too of the when people put different things in their bath, for instance, which one you always need a carrier when you're using oils in a bath, and some people don't know that.
We burned ourselves.
Oh yeah.
In the bathtub.
Yep.
You know, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want citrus. No, you don't. You should not put orange in the bathtub. You will have a burn all around your body.
Yeah, especially just right in the water. You could use small amounts in a carrier and it won't do that. But it's still smaller amounts. Like people sit there and be like 10, 20 oils and drops of oils. And like I said, people like to waste oils.
Yeah. Okay, so can we just go to the bathtub?
Yeah.
Tell me more about the carrier and how many drops with what carrier is beneficial for relaxing in the tub.
Okay, so first of all, I want to clarify the reason why you don't put it right in the water is because they're lipophilic. So they're attracted to fats, which is important, especially even when you're diffusing them for like germ killing properties. It's good that they're attracted to fats. So when you put them in the water, you see them floating on the top, and then you get in and your body consists of fat. And so your body goes and soaks them all up, which is how you get burned, even with really gentle oils. So that's the why. The best carriers are salts. So Epsom salts, sea salts, just dead sea salts, any kind of salts, milk, and honey. So one of my favorites when I was first kind of really starting to use oils, and this was all just on my own experimentation type stuff, the only education I had was in massage school, which is very limited pertaining to oils. I made like a sensual honey bath, and so it had honey, and then it had more like sensual type oils in it, like a jasmine and stuff. But for just relaxation, salts are usually a really great way to go, especially if you're using the Epsom salts. You're getting like the whole soothing effects of the magnesium, is it sulfate? I always have to reread the package.
We got big.
But for just relaxing is the typical like lavender, chamomile. Those ones are really great. You know, if you want a little bit more of that sensual self-love kind of vibe, you can do like a rose or a jasmine or neroli. The flowers, you know, the flowers just always smell really good and like feel really good. And in like a half a cup of salts, if you're using something like floral ones, the flowers, you could go up to about 15 drops.
Okay.
But if you're doing citrus, I tend to stick around like 5.
Oh.
And it's interesting because citrus are pretty gentle. They're a pretty gentle oil. Like when you take like kind of a beginner's oil class, they're going to be one of the first ones that's like diffuse all the citrus because it can't really hurt people, you know?
Right.
But in the bath, they can be detoxifying. And so that is something where, you know, I've seen over and over again. And I put lemon in the bath and it was like I was burned, and people are like, yay, you're detoxing. And I'm just like, yay, you're burning your skin. You know?
Yeah. Oh, talk about disconnected.
And there is that component though. There is the detoxing component, but it's just like you don't need it to do that. There are exceptions to all the rules, and that's I think what makes aromatherapy so complicated.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, on one hand it's so simple, but then it gets so complicated because there are exceptions to all of the rules. For instance, even using that cheat of like going and seeing what's kid safe. If you're working with an aromatherapist, there are going to be not kid safe oils that they might use with your kids, but it's because they really know what they're doing to dose it and like make it effective and safe.
Okay, let's talk about kids.
All right.
I'm just going to share my experiences with, well, I don't really use oils on people much anymore for this reason. It would probably be a huge benefit for many. There's the hot oils. This is what I know about not using on kids. The hot oils, wintergreen, I don't know, maybe peppermint. The like eucalyptus, we talked about a little bit before we started recording, but like for the respiratory stuff, that's what I hear all the time. So can we just talk about pros and cons? Is that the best way to attack it?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, when I talk, you know, at the end, I'll talk about like my foundations class, but that's where I start is the respiratory system.
Yeah.
So it's like lavender, woo, and then it's like the respiratory system, because that is our first pathway for wellness, our breath and breathing in and bringing that prana and that life force into our body. That has to be clear and clean and healthy. So I start there. And there are there's 5 main respiratory oils. Okay. And pine and fir are kid safe. And so is eucalyptus radiata. So there are numerous eucalyptus strains. The number one most popular is Eucalyptus globulus, and that one is not considered kid safe. And then the second most popular is the radiata strain, and that one is considered kid safe because its 1/8 cineol content is lower.
Got it.
So it still is effective. It still is eucalyptus. It still has that menthol, clean, crisp, clear it all out component. But it's just a little bit lower in that one chemical compound, which makes it more kid safe. General rules of thumb, and again, like working with somebody, they might do something different, but it's that you don't diffuse under 6 months and you don't do topical until over the age of 2. But now, again, if you're working with somebody who's done this, you might have a 16-month-old or a 13-month-old who is so stuffed up and can't sleep at night, and you could make a chest rub that would be safe and effective and help them sleep. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, then people go and they Google things, and then it's like, now what?
For sure. And it's not a place to Google, because even from my perspective, I actually have no idea. If I type this into Google, I have no clue what's reputable and what's not. Like, how does somebody, if they don't work directly with you and they follow you, I mean, like, how does somebody actually discern somebody who knows what they're talking about versus not?
I've really liked kind of paying attention to like the institutes. I feel like they put out like decent blogs. Like I believe one is called like Aroma Head Institute or something like that. I'd have to double check on that because I didn't do training through them. My favorite school that I've done training with is the Franklin Institute. They sometimes offer classes as well for just kind of like the lay person to take. Mm-hmm. A lot of times though, like they are geared as continuing ed courses for aromatherapists. So sometimes I feel like you might take a class and you're like, oh, I learned so much. And then you're like, I still don't know what to do because, and that's the world. Like even as an aromatherapist, I've learned like all these different things and I'm like, okay, great. And I've got this and it's solid. And then I'm like, oh, wait, now there's this whole other world that just opened up to me. And so now I'm like, more continuing ed.
That's why we need people like you.
Yeah.
You don't even know, you can learn your top 3 oils to use for relaxation between you and your kids, and you still have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
because take eucalyptus, for example. There's
Right.
all these different things that pop up on your order form online, and you have no idea how to differentiate them. What's good, what's bad. How would anybody know that globulus is not kid safe? Unless they know you
Right.
or follow these places, right?
Right. And that's why I do like that little plant therapy hack, because it's like,
Yes.
okay, for all the moms in the world,
Yes.
parents in general, if you want like that quick hack, it's kind of nice. It can give you a little bit of that peace of mind of like, okay, well, this oil at least says kids safe on it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll attach that in the show notes too. So so they have it. What else for kids after the respiratory system?
Okay, so those calming oils that are generally kid safe as well, like the lavender and the chamomile, are so incredible. They really help soothe their system. The citruses are nice, especially if you're just kind of using them for diffusion in that regard, because there isn't really much of a reason to use them topically with a kid. Like, I don't know, you'd have to have something pretty specific, some sort of allergic reaction or something going on.
So all of them, lavender, chamomile, citrus, are all best diffused?
No. Okay. So lavender and chamomile would be great topically diluted. And you can follow like general dilution rate guidelines that you can find online pretty easy. They talk about, doing like a 0.5% dilution rate.
What does that mean?
Right. So that means that for the amount of carrier oil you have, which could be any like food-based oil, when I don't have anything in the house, it would be like olive oil or coconut, because like I always have those in the house. It could be a sunflower, it could be an almond if you're good with nuts and you use those things. It just basically any fatty edible oil. And I'd say one exception to that would be castor oil. I don't consider that necessarily edible, even though some people will drink it for certain things. But any fatty oil, and that only 0.5% is going to be the essential oil. So for instance, if you have 1 tablespoon of the carrier, you're using 1 drop of the essential oil. So that is like a very common working with kids, 1 tablespoon, 1 drop. And I've got to go back to why I love Floricopia as well. They have their orifice reducer on their bottles. When you tip it upside down and you tap it and you get 1 drop.
Oh.
So many, oil bottles, it's like you tip them and then you have 5 drops all of a sudden. Or you don't have any drops. So that becomes like a whole thing. And usually up to 1% is fine for children over 2. Just 1 second, please. Door. Okay.
Just a minute, when you say 1%, that would be 2 drops, right? Because it does 0.5 mean 0.5%?
0.5 does mean 0.5%, yes. Okay.
So
so you can 4%. Usually go up to the 2 drops.
Okay.
And then, so that's kind of like okay when, something is something, you get 2 drops accidentally. You don't usually have to freak out. And especially when you're using something like the lavender and the chamomile, because they are very friendly for kids.
Okay.
And there's others. It's just like starting with the basics. And that's kind of like
basics.
A nice thing, like when you just kind of go into, sorry about that. When you go into just starting, you just learn, like I'd say this with all plant medicine, whether it's essential oils or herbs or anything, it's kind of like you slowly build your apothecary. You start with 1 or 2 or 3 oils, you really start to learn them. You become familiar, they become your allies, they become your friends. You start to get to know them more. Just kind of like, even when you're talking about, you put lemon in the bath or something, or sweet orange, and now you're like, ah, that'll burn me if I do that. Well, now you're starting to learn
Right.
what's going on.
Right. Okay. Besides kid calm, kid respiratory, anything else on the kid side that's a highlight?
I think one of the things like you touched upon is like you don't use spice oils, which are the really hot oils. A lot of people want to go when their kids are sick, they want to go and put, you know, a thieves kind of thing on them. And that's like, there's lots of spice oils in there, lots of not kid safe oils, cloves, cinnamon, rosemary, like all those kinds of things aren't kid safe. I feel like one of the reasons why people don't necessarily always have negative effects with it though is because they are using it short term and they do dilute it. So when somebody says something like, oh, well, that's fine, I've done that with my kids and it's totally fine, I just put it on their feet and blah blah blah, I feel like that's the reason why, you know, but that's not something you want to do on a regular basis, and it's something that is really reserved for those special cases. So if you're wanting to just kill germs in your child's body and you're wanting to put something on topically, whether it's on their feet or like on their chest where the germs are, just like a tea tree or even more kid safe is Niauli, which is Niauli, because it's considered a protective oil. And so that's then where my education goes next, is to the protective oils, because that is the germ killers. That's the one that's going to kill all the germs. And spices do that. Yes, spice oils do that. But they're kind of like down here on the list of resources, you know? Like I hardly use them, like hardly ever at all in my own work and practice and home living and everything. And of course, some people really love the smell of them. And so like you shouldn't diffuse them around kids either. And we kind of go up until like the age of 2 for some of that, but still the doses for kids are so increased even with a diffuser for so many reasons. Their lung capacity is different, their kidney excretion is different. The fact that they're lower to the ground, the fact that they're shorter means they're inhaling more of the oil. So whatever you're inhaling as an adult, your kid's inhaling like 5 times that amount, especially when they're under the age of 2. And a lot of times I'll even go under the age of 3 and stuff, especially when we're talking about spice oils and things like that. In aromatherapy, it's like things shift at age 2, things shift at age 6, and then at age 12. And so for me, it's like no spice oil things until they're 12.
Okay. Wow.
But again, there's the exceptions, you know, like if you're sitting there and you're dealing with an illness that is just like so awful, then work with somebody. Get something that's dosed.
Cold crystal. Don't Google it.
Yeah, you know, because you want to kill that stuff, right? You want to move through the illness. You want to get to the other side, and you want to do it naturally and safely. And that is, like you kind of mentioned, like pro cons. It is a lot of that like pro con thing. And it's the same as when you look at, do I want to take this antibiotic? Do I want to put this topical thing? Do I want to use the steroid? You know, you're always looking at the pro cons of the situation. And so with kids, that's like where it all's at. It's like, you know, is this going to be better than this? What, you know, is the benefit going to outweigh the con? And that's where sometimes when I talk about like getting burned by oils, there can be some of that dermotoxic reaction if you're working with a certain wound or something like that, that you're really trying to like knock out of the park. The same as if you poured hydrogen peroxide on, it's going to sting for a minute. Right. Even something like lavender can sting, you know, when it's killing all that stuff, just impact right then. And I have to say, too, that makes me think of hydrosols with kids. I love using hydrosols.
What is a hydrosol?
Yeah, those are the aromatic waters that come from the distillation process. So when all this plant material is put in the distiller, this water moves through it and at the end you get a big batch of water and then the oil. And the big batch of water is the hydrosol. And so there are micro droplets of the oils in there, so much so that it's dispersed. Oil and water don't mix, but you look at a hydrosol and it's all dispersed because there's so micro droplets in there, but you can smell it. It'll smell different than an oil does too. Like the smell of lavender hydrosol does not smell the way that lavender oil does. But hydrosols are so great around kids, and they're so diluted that even using something that's not generally known to be kid safe, like a peppermint or a rosemary, is not scary.
Interesting. I have never heard of that ever.
They're one of my favorite things. So lavender and helichrysum hydrosol are like my must-haves in a house. The lavender is great for like diaper rash, and it's one for women. So like women, shouldn't really use anything on their vulva or anything like that, right? But certain hydrosols can be really great for balancing out the pH and stuff. So if you have anything strange just starting to go on, you can use a lavender hydrosol as a woman as well. But it's great for cuts and bruises. It's great for breathing in and trying to be calm. Kids love sprays too, so it's like ghost spray and like boogeyman spray and all those kinds of things. So like you can use that for if they're having like anxiety and stuff too. You can spray it just kind of and let them stick their own face in it. You can spray it off to the side, let them walk through it. Any of those kinds of things, they're fun, and they're not that expensive usually either. Like the Pranarum 1 ounce bottles are $5. It's like, it's so great. But then helichrysum it's known as immortel because its powers for cell regeneration are just incredible. So people use it in skin creams and things for anti-aging purposes for their face. But the hydrosol, that is my, like, you just fell off your bike, you got to scrape, you just ran on the concrete, you got to scrape. I spray that on and it's just magic.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have never heard of this before.
Yeah, I love them.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. I need to have it like in the office. I think you need to come and do a kids. Well, maybe not come and do, but maybe, I don't know.
In the future, we can gather.
I don't know. We could Zoom gather maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the women that you work with? Can you kind of just, I don't know, do we maybe want to go through one stereotypical woman and how you see that, or just the favorites again?
Well, everybody's so individual. So sure, I can kind of try to do it that way. A very stereotypical situation I feel like I come across a lot are people who are close to perimenopause or who are in perimenopause. And they have so much anxiety. They're having a hard time grounding out. They feel like their hormones are all out of whack. They're suffering from insomnia. I mean, the list goes on, and each person is so unique. So I look at, I do a lot of stuff with Ayurveda. So I look at them through an Ayurvedic lens where I want to know their personal constitution, who they were before all of this and who they are now. So like what their root, their real constitution is as a person, which ties into the elements and different components. And I'm not going to go all into that right now. And then I look at where they are now. And so through the Ayurvedic lens, things like anxiety and being really scatterbrained and insomnia are considered a vata derangement. And again, I'm not going to go into all the Ayurvedic stuff right now, but that's one of the things that I look at. So if they are naturally that type of person, I'm going to like really want to support all of that. If they're not naturally that kind of person, I'm going to kind of do what could be a little bit more tridoshic. So lavender is definitely tridoshic. So it's for all of the constitutions. It's for all of the people. So that might be something where I'm going to use that with somebody who maybe isn't a Vata person in general. But then I'm going to look at like their hormones, and I'm going to look at their sleep, and I'm going to look at what is the number one priority that's going on here. Like, do we need to get you sleeping? Do we need to just really have a remedy for you when you're on the verge of feeling anxiety? And or are we really needing to hone in on balancing and harmonizing your hormones? You know, and it's so intertwined. So we have to look at each person and their exact priority, and we start there. And you know, one thing that a lot of people don't know about is using inhalers. So inhalers are a very common aromatherapy remedy, and that's a way that you're able to use the oils and actually get a medicinal dose. Diffusing it. Like, I have a whole thing that I went on YouTube to talk about diffusers, because diffusers, you can either be in a room and you're actually medicinally dosing or overdosing people, or you're not doing anything that's doing anything, you know? Because same diffuser, same amount of drops. It just has to do with the space it's in and who's in that space.
Right.
So, but yeah, when I'm working with somebody, I want to go through that. You know, are we going to be doing something where you're putting something on your pillow at night? Are we going to be looking at just trying to really balance your hormones? So you're going to be doing this dose, you know, topically, aromatically, olfactory through the nose, you know, and then we just kind of hone in on all of that. And there's generally like immediate effects, you know. When we think about going just aromatically through the nose, and I keep saying that because ingestion of oils is called aromatic medicine. And so I feel like that's confusing. So, but when we're going through the olfactory system, everything can impact the limbic system right away. It's going straight to your brain so that you can really start to feel an effect and have that effect right away. So that's another thing that's important, is really using the right remedy for what's going on. So for me, generally with that type of person, they have an inhaler, they have a topical oil that they're using, and then we check back after, you know, 7 to 14 days and see like what's working, what needs to be tweaked, those kinds of things.
Okay. What is a most common, let's just say, for anxiety, or I mean, let's just take this time right now in the world, but anxiety, uncertainty, feeling disconnected and out of their body. What's recommended by you?
I really like bergamot because it has the uplifting citrusy smell and qualities, but it has well-researched effects on anti-anxiety type support. What's interesting in the research though is that when researched for, like, for instance, pre-procedural type things, or, you know, dental things or things like that, it has a different effect for kids. So it doesn't support children the same way as it does adults. So even though I think it can have the anxiety support for a child, it's different, and it definitely does not work the same way at all for pre-procedural type anxiety in children at all. And really stuff that you like the way they smell, you know, because it's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you happy. A lot of times I go for really grounding oils, because when people are disconnected, they need to ground out. So I really love like Palo Santo and vetiver. Vetiver is a great one for sleep, for insomnia as well. So when that kind of stuff is going on, but again, like, you want to like the way they smell, and the vetiver especially is very resiny smelling and woodsy, where the Palo Santo to me is a little bit lighter. And it has some of that connection where it's like it's going to connect you to source, spirit, God, and it's going to connect you to yourself.
Right.
The Palo Santo does.
How do you suggest to use those? Like, if you put on your wrist?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah,
feet?
if you like the way it smells, I like having a roll-on that's on your wrist or on your neck so that you're really smelling it.
Mhm.
Especially those two, like the woodsier ones. I sometimes like to diffuse them, but I tend to really like them topically. But you can diffuse them as well. And a lot of times people like to mix them with something, to like Palo Santo and lavender go really well together. So if you like lavender, I know lavender is just so huge. So you're going to hear me talk about it all the time. But I know there are people who don't like it. My mom does not like it.
Yeah. I don't like it alone.
Yeah.
I like it mixed, and I'm okay with it diffused, but I need to mix it with, I usually mix it with the citrus.
Yeah.
Lavender and peppermint, like that smells and feels super good to me. But I would say the majority of even people in the office don't care for it alone.
Yeah. And so it's interesting, like that type of association. So, if you're using it or trying to use it for anxiety and stuff, it's not going to work. Because you have our scent memory all happens, gosh, I forget now if it's before the age of 6, I believe. All of our scents, like we have all of the scent memory that happens before that age. And so, different things really can like rub us the wrong way just from like these unknown things.
Wow,
And I don't know that that's the case all the time with lavender. I think some people just got like overplayed, kind of like a song that's overplayed on it. And so sometimes taking it out and bringing it back in works, but it is nice to blend it with other things. I like it with the citruses and the mints and stuff too. But I really like it with all the grounding oils.
yeah, that's good. Do oils expire?
They do, yeah. Yeah, they can go rancid. So generally like 5-ish years, people like to kind of throw them out. That's when I like to use them in my cleaning things. Like, because I'm not using them for their actual cleaning properties per se. I'm using them just to smell good. So for me, like I make a poopery. You've probably seen like that brand name. I make a poopery spray. And so that's what I use them for. All of the ones that are just like on the edge. Citruses expire a lot sooner. They can be like 2 to maybe 3 years.
Really?
They just have a much shorter shelf life. They oxidate much more quickly.
Wow, who would have thunk?
Yeah.
All right, what else? Anything we haven't covered?
Well, I think the only other thing, what?
I mean, for today.
Right. I know. We could talk forever. Let me bust out some manuals of mine. But I think the only other thing that I didn't necessarily say with like the dilutions and stuff, that's just like a great way for people to start at home, but it's not an actual dose. So when an aromatherapist is dosing something, it's like, yes, they are using dilution, but it's more specific than that, where we actually create longer math problems for ourselves. And we utilize the person's, possibly their weight if they're a child, but their age, and like you create like an actual dose where it's like this many times a day you're covering, if it's topical, you're covering this amount of the body, so there's dosing and dilution are different. And I just think that that's important for people to understand, especially if you're like trying to really heal something. And to me, they are medicine, and that's why I talk about like using them really wisely and in the way that you want, with all of the exceptions. You're going to have the ones that you really just like diffusing. I have a lot of different blends that I've really been liking there to just diffuse, because they are really nice blends. And when you talk about like these uncertain times and things, Pranaram has great diffusion blends that are like just fun. There's like uplift and zen and tranquility and peace are like their names, and they did it. Like they got some really synergistic smells all together. and having kids, there's different kids blends and stuff too.
Mhm.
I really like the Pranarum, like Purify, if you are trying to just kill the germs in the air. Such a good one. And then there's like a sleep one, which is really nice too. So, yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, do you have, so I see multiple stages of people that are listening are like, what? I
Mhm.
need to just talk to her, because that kind of all encompasses. There's the other one that's like, whoa, I'm giving a lot of tips. I can just order a few of these. Where else, like what other, do you have great Facebook pages that you recommend that people can just kind of be dipped, or is it not really a thing?
Well, I think there probably are. I'm just not
Yeah.
in any of them. Like the only
Yeah.
ones I'm in are like trained aromatherapist groups, you
Okay.
know? So I'm not super active in them
Yeah.
either because yeah, I don't know. I pick and choose my groups that I'm super
Oh yeah,
active in,
no,
right?
100%. I'm just thinking of the typical person that needs resources that don't know where to start.
Right. So I have a class. I have my Building Your Essential Oil Apothecary class that is a really great start. And I feel like if a person were to take that, they might start to be able to have a greater understanding, and you come away with a lot that you can play with, because like I said, I go through lavender and then I go through respiratory oils, protective oils, and citrus. And so you have a lot to play with from that. And it's only, if you add up all the videos and everything, I think it's about an hour long
Okay.
class. So it's not a huge time investment. And you can do it in snippets because, each video is like anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes or whatever long. So that is on, well, I have two different websites. I have the moreheadmassage.com, and it's on there. And I also have a Hydrosols class on there too, if somebody wanted to go
Mhm.
deeper into all of that. And they're affordable. That class, the Building Your Essential Oil one, is $29. The Hydrosol class is $11.
Awesome.
And then I have like my personal website, which is just crystalfranco.com. And on there, I have all of those classes. And then I'm also going to be having like other not aromatherapy related classes on
Yes.
there. So I think that's a great place to start. I've wanted to compile a better like resource list for people like that. So I suppose this is my inspiration to really do that.
For sure. I think, well, so in this time that we've spent together, and I would consider myself pretty well versed in, healing stuff. Now, the Ayurvedic, no, I'm not well versed in that, but I bet there are 10 things in here that I didn't know about.
And that's how people feel when they take just that class, the Building Your Essential Oil Apothecary class. Like there's people who have been working with oils for decades and they're like, what?
Yeah.
I had no idea,
Yeah.
just it's cool. Like one of the things when I talk about like protective oils and killing the germs and being lipophilic, I break that down, how it works in your diffuser and how it like goes and kills the germs in the air. It's neat.
Cool.
Specifically tea tree. It just
Uh,
totally smashes the cell. It's wild.
Wow. That's crazy.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that like even people who've been using oils for a long time learn from that. And I feel like it's a great, great starting point.
Mhm.
And I do have like a couple recipes like for rashes and different things like that I have in there as well. And I'm ever expanding it. And a person has like lifetime access to it. So if, they wanted to revisit it in 2 years, they can go revisit it.
Right.
And at that time, I might have other recipes that I've added to it.
Yeah.
And you can just keep up with like what I upload next. Like I have a carrier oils class that's recorded, but not up yet. I have one for mental emotional stuff and pain and muscles and all these different genres. I am going to do one for kids in sports, actually. That's something that my daughter's cheer team I've wanted to put together for a year now. But,
Yeah.
you know, all the things. I do all the
Yeah.
things. So.
Yeah, and it's finding the priority.
Yep.
And we learn as we go. We learn as our kids go through stuff that we're like, oh, we learn as we start seeing a culmination of the most common things, and we create solutions for that, right? That's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that there's a lot of things that want your solutions, my friend.
Right.
Because, I mean, even just touching on Ayurvedic, there's not a ton of resource here, locally at least, in that kind of care and that kind of education, you know? So most people probably had no idea when you said tridoshic, just the doshas.
Right.
You know, we don't know that. We don't hear that. That's not in front of our face. So keep creating. So we all can learn from you. Do you do one-on-one stuff?
I do one-on-one stuff. And I think that that's one of those things that I would like people to understand the potency and the importance and the value of doing it, you know, and the end result might be that I'm mixing and making different remedies for the person, or it's okay, here's just this oil and you're going to do ... with it. I do like to give it to the person so they're empowered. I don't want you to have to rely on me all the time, right? But in those beginning phases, or if you're dealing with certain really specific situations, I do like when people utilize the help, you know?
Right.
It's really specific.
Do you have a private Facebook group yet?
I have no. I've had them and I've ended them, and I've had them and I've ended them.
It's a lot of commitment.
For me, I do a lot through email, and on moreheadmassage.com there are the one-on-one aromatherapy consults. It's listed on our booking site and on our services.
Awesome. Oh, so good. What do you want to leave people with? What is the one thing to close this coffee talk down?
I think it would be that you can definitely utilize the plant medicine, go slow, use kind of what you're most familiar with or what feels the safest first. And if you don't know, ask questions.
Yeah. Awesome. Man, I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg. We may need to pick some. It would be interesting to pick some specific topics and work through some of those things.
Absolutely.
Especially since we see similar people. It's quite relevant for women. Well, women and kids, because our kids model us, as we know.
Yes.
So it is important for us women to be connected and be grounded. And, I always talk about learned genetics. That's not even really the word, but what we start to experience and think of our normal is because the generation above us experienced that and thought that was normal also. And so when we're talking anxiety, fertility, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, all those things, we just start to think that's normal, and that's genetics, because my mom had it, my sister had it, and my grandma had it. And now when our 13-year-old daughter starts having issues with her period, we think that's normal because that's how it was for us. And so my hope is that we can stop some of that generational patterning by taking care of ourselves first and mentoring and teaching them through what's normal, right? But we don't know what's normal until we can see a different path. I mean, how many times, oh my gosh, if I could count on, I don't know how many times every single day that someone's like, well, it's just kind of my normal. Oh my goodness.
I know. Or all of the things, when you talk about that, thinking a period abnormality is normal, or, Leaking. I'm old, so now I leak urine. That's normal.
I've had babies, so now I pee my
Right.
pants.
Right.
Right.
That's not normal. It's
No,
common. It's not
it is-
normal.
Exactly. It was interesting when Callan was the age of getting her period. And just conversations between girls, she would come home and say, Mom, what do you think about the pill? And I was like, what? They're 14 and 15, because they all had abnormalities. They all had pain that they thought the normal next step was to be on the pill. And that doesn't come from them. That comes from us understanding what's normal, what's not, and what do I need to dig into now to find out how can I balance the system so that even if it is, so that my kids don't think this is normal. Mama has a migraine and she's depressed and she's miserable until she takes her pill in the morning. Well, that is what's going to start happening to that 6-year-old girl that watches mom every single day.
Right. Well, and it's cool that you mentioned that too, because I just had somebody whose daughter just started her moon time, and she's like, what oils?
Yep.
And it's like, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, okay, what would be a great celebratory package? Like, which oils would be my first moon time gift package, and kind of exploring that a little more, because I hadn't gone there with my practice yet, So I was just like, ooh, I like this.
This is, yes. Plus all the work you do with female energy and sexuality. And I think, I believe, which a lot of our period issues is lack of acceptance of sexuality and sensuality.
Absolutely.
We're shutting that system down because that's not appropriate. And so, that could be a fun topic.
Yes.
About just taking a girl from, as you call moon time, I say bloody surprise. That's terrible. Oh my gosh, that just flew out of my mouth. Anyway,
we gotta reframe it, see,
Totally do. Oh my gosh. But how many women and their daughters are open to it being this beautiful process versus like, oh, it's beginning for her. Well, that's the result we're going to get along their whole path. So
right.
I think we should do another one of these.
Oh yeah. I have so many things to say. I'm just not.
I know, because we don't have time for another hour.
It's cool though. We can definitely meet again.
I'm super happy that Facebook happened.
Yes.
And we connected on, I've known you for a long time, but I even knowing you didn't know all of these golden nuggets that you have in your head and your heart. And you are a magical healer. So we're going to get all your things out there. So if people want to work with you, at least just starting to follow your and my conversations. And I don't know, I think we should maybe just ask people what they want to know a little bit more about in this topic. And
yeah, I like that.
And give it to them. So
let's do it. And thank you for the reflection, my dear, because you are a magical being.
Yeah. A magic attracts magic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening and being willing to go all in. Ditch the excuses and the comfort zones and make a decision that nothing can stop you. You can find the show notes below, and I'd love for you to share, subscribe, and rate this podcast, but only if you love it.